Natural gas is a fossil fuel formed when many layers of buried plants and animals are exposed to intense heat and pressure over thousands of years while buried under layers of sedimentary rock. To become gas, the energy that was being stored in the organism from the sun is turned into gas from the intense heat and pressure. Natural gas has many uses, such as electricity and heating. To make electricity, the natural gas is combusted to generate electricity, enabling the stored energy to be transformed into usable power. Power plants use several methods to convert gas to electricity. One method is to burn the gas in a boiler to produce steam, which is then used by a steam turbine to generate electricity. A more common approach is to burn the gas in a combustion turbine to generate electricity. Unfortunately, the one drawback of natural gas is that natural gas is a non-renewable resource because it cannot be replenished on a human time frame. Because it takes millions of years to replenish, it is not an infinite supplies. We originally believed that our supply of fossil fuels would run out very soon, but we keep on discovering more and more fossil fuel supplies, like methane hydrates and natural gas and shale rock around the world. This is increasing our dependency on fossil fuels, which emit a lot of carbon. These fossil fuels will soon be depleted, and we will be left unprepared for what lies ahead. Overall, any fossil fuels like natural gas are not a good resource to use compared to wind and solar energy, which are infinite. Unfortunately, wind and solar energy do not have the energy-producing capabilities of gas and oil. It takes many wind turbines to make the same amount of energy as natural gas does, making it less efficient more than $1 million. While in the short run, wind energy is more expensive in money, when the environment costs are much less expensive. They do not harm the environment, and the amount of wind in just a few states can power the entire U.S. If bills like the Carbon Tax Act, which tax companies on the amount of carbon that they are emitting, are passed, it will create a more even playing field and make the better option of wind energy cheaper. It is a more realistic way of thinking about it because it factors in both the cost of money but also the cost that it has on the environment. One of the biggest benefits of fracking is that the U.S. has become the second largest oil-producing state in the world. This is huge because in the past we have imported a lot of our oil from Middle Eastern oil-rich states like Saudi Arabia, and we were dependent on them for our energy. But now we do not have to rely on other states in an increasingly unstable part of the world. We have changed our geopolitics by making the U.S. self-reliant. The negative aspect is that the U.S. has invested a huge amount of resources into natural gas and fossil fuels that will run out and emit the harmful carbon into the atmosphere rather than renewable energy resources, which we have an infinite supply of.
Now let's take a look at how fracking works. First, a shaft is drilled several hundred meters into the earth. From there, a horizontal hole is drilled into the gas-bearing layer of rock. Next, the fracking fluid is pumped into the ground using high-performance pumps. On average, the fluid consists of 8 million liters of water, which amounts to about the daily consumption of 65,000 people, plus several thousand tons of sand and about 200,000 liters of chemicals. The mixture penetrates into the rock layer and produces innumerable tiny cracks. The sand prevents the cracks from closing again. The chemicals perform various tasks. Among other things, they condense the water, kill off bacteria, or dissolve minerals. Next, the majority of the fracking fluid is pumped out again, and now the natural gas can be recovered. As soon as the gas source is exhausted, the drill hole is sealed. As a rule, the fracking fluid is pumped back into the underground layers and sealed there. However, fracking is also associated with several considerable risks. Nearly all natural gas extraction today involves a technique called hydraulic fracturing or fracking, in which dangerous chemicals are mixed with large amounts of water and sand. They are then injected into wells at extremely high pressure. Fracking is a suspect in polluted drinking water in Arkansas, Colorado, Pennsylvania, Texas, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. And residents have reported changes in water quality or quantity following fracking operations. Here are some of them: contamination of groundwater, methane pollution and its impact on climate change, air pollution impacts, exposure to toxic chemicals, blowouts due to gas explosion, waste disposal, large volume water use in water deficient regions, fracking induced earthquakes, workplace safety, infrastructure degradation, and contributor to global warming. If fracking isn't reduced or changed to make it safer, it will result in a global catastrophe, resulting in mass extinctions of wildlife and contaminated resources, leading to disease and chaos on a global scale. Because of fracking, climate change is more real than ever, and if we don't take the necessary precautions to make fracking safer and use its products safer, climate change will become a global problem that will endanger the welfare of international society.
Oh, good.
Great. Mr. Farrell wanted.
Alright. As no negative evidence is found about fracking, other opinions and also have in a field conducted in September 2013. Okay. A field conducted in September 2013 says 49% of those opposed fracking, while only 44% supported. Although natural gas companies are aware of the danger of fracking to the environment, and some are taking steps to protect against these dangers, the public still isn't totally on board. However, even though the public isn't completely sure, most politicians are strongly pro fracking because they have boosted the U.S. oil and gas production by about 25% in recent years. Politicians are also keen on the idea that fracking could make the U.S. more self-sufficient energy-wise as a nation, and reduce the need to rely on other countries such as China or Saudi Arabia for coal and oil. The U.S. is leading the way on hydraulic fracking because they have the largest amounts of shale deposits in the world. In the near future, other countries like China and France will most likely follow the U.S. lead because they have large amounts of shale deposits as well. Even with fracking upside, most environmental scientists agree on the fact that even though fracking is more effective in the sense of cost and energy produced than building fossil fuels like coal and oil, it still releases harmful methane gas that contaminate drinking water and other aspects of the environment, like the atmosphere. Although many feel that in a best option right now for producing energy, fracking cannot be considered a definitive solution. In the future, natural gas companies will have to find a cleaner way to produce energy that doesn't contribute to global warming and reduce the need for harming.
Global warming is exactly what it sounds like: an overall increase in temperature of the Earth. The Earth goes through temperature fluctuations naturally over the course of several thousand years. When the temperature begins to change faster, it becomes a cause for concern. The primary cause of global warming is the greenhouse effect. Like global warming, this is a natural phenomenon. As sunlight hits the Earth, some of its heat is reflected back into space, while some is absorbed by greenhouse gases, naturally occurring atmospheric gases such as carbon dioxide and methane. Like insulation, the heat gas in the atmosphere keep the Earth warm enough to sustain life. However, since the Industrial Revolution, human activity has caused the amount of greenhouse gases to increase. More gas means more heat, and the sun is trapped on the Earth, theoretically raising its temperature. Basically, it's like adding more insulation to your home without lowering the amount of time you run your heater. An increasing temperature on the planet can have disastrous effects on the long term. Widespread changes to Earth's climate would be expected to cause extreme weather and storms, massive ecological changes, and the extinction of many species. Unfortunately, humans produce a lot of greenhouse through power plants, automobiles, landfills, and even livestock cultivation. Anytime you reduce the use of any of these things, you are helping the environment. Whether you drive your car less or make sure the power plant doesn't have to send as much electricity to your house or just recycle, it all helps the earth in a big way. According to the IPCC's most recent report on global warming and climate change, the global temperatures have gone up around 0.78 degrees Celsius since 1900. That is just over 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit. While that may seem minuscule, that is a large amount according to a short period of time. Think about the difference between temperature for the human body. If you have a fever of 38 degrees Celsius, approximately 0.78 degrees Celsius higher than the normal body temperature, you will be incredibly sick with a fever equivalent of over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The process of fracking damages the local environment by poisoning the local water supply and with many harmful chemicals such as radium-248. Radium-248 is extremely dangerous to mammals and can give them radiation poisoning, which can in some instances lead to death. Marcellus Shale, the rock used in fracking, has over 250 times the amount of radium-248 than the safe level for humans. Fracking destroys the local environment through the pollution of water sources and causing various earthquakes, essentially destroying the whole area for most general use. The natural gas, mostly methane, while is more of a clean burn than the other fossil fuels, still emits CO2, which warms the earth through the greenhouse effect. The rising carbon dioxide creates a warmer climate for Earth. Additionally, the natural gases are fossil fuels, a renewable form of energy like wind or solar, but do not have CO2 emissions. Non-renewable energies take millions of years to regenerate, if regenerable at all, and there is not enough of it left to last us for long enough for it to replenish.